Hello, I'm Suhyeon Lee. I'm a security researcher at Tokamak Network, also a part-time lecturer in Korea University. So today I'll talk about the blob sharing and my simulation research. So the subtitle is Will Blob Sharing Solve Dilemma for Small Rollups? So I'm not sure you're all familiar with blobs, but in Ethereum, this concept was proposed by EIP-4844, and it dramatically reduced costs for the data availability for rollups. So, the characteristic of blobs is that it's the size, each blob size 128 kilobyte, and even if, unlike cold data, in cold data you pay for the bytes you use in cold data, but in blobs you always have to pay for 128 kilobyte, even if you use just 1 byte or 2 bytes. So also another characteristic is blob fee mechanism. That is that if there are more than blobs than some threshold, this is now the 3, then blob-based fee increases exponentially. Also, there are like a lack of blobs, then it decreases exponentially. So there's a dilemma for small blobs. So my company also has a small layer 2 mainnet, but the problem is we don't have like a lot of transactions like Base or the OP mainnet or like Arbitrum. So and for many small blobs, 128 kilobytes actually is quite big. Then small blobs have to choose either one of them. First option is using blobs without filling most of 128 kilobytes. So you have to pay very inefficiently. Like you have to pay way more than you use. So for example, Tyco, their average blob size is, the real blob size is 30 kilobyte for Jerkit, 6 kilobyte, and the metal 0.175 kilobyte. But like a big rollups like Base, they use 126 kilobytes, and the OP mainnet also same. The other strategy is use the real long delay for data availabilities. For example, Boba network, one of small rollups, but 150 blocks. It's the gap of the blob submission. And the other example, the bank chain, is 570 the block gap. But for example, big rollups, Base just 9 blobs, and OP mainnet 24 blocks. So it means big rollups provides data availability just on time, but small rollups because of the cost, they have really big the DA gaps. So so this is also a dilemma for our mainnet. So I was finding some solutions, and I found a concept called blob sharing. But it was proposed like last year, and it was at the time it was very theoretical level. So I'm like, oh, now there are like 6 months of real blob submission data. So let's check it out. So the question was, what if rollups share blobs? So goal of this mini project was cost analysis of rollups with blob sharing, and the target rollups are like 28 rollups labeled in Dune, because I could easily analyze the data. And my expectation is small rollups may get really good cost reduction. Just small rollups, not big rollups, because big rollups are very efficiently using blobs. So then how can I simulate blob sharing? So I had to make such assumptions. For example, the first assumption is the core assumption, the constant data rate. So, and okay, I'll explain constant data rate after the the other assumptions. And also I assumed there is a virtual separate DA contract. Can be proxy DA contract for other rollups DA contract, and there's a uniform gas consumption because the rollups have their own DA contract, and for the blob submission they have different their own the DA function in smart contract. Usually they just just consume the minimum gas, but some rollups use their own customized function, so they cost more. But for simulation, I assume they use all the same the function costing the minimal gas. And also the last assumption is that after blob sharing, there will be less number of blobs. But I assume that the change wouldn't change the Ethereum just transaction-based fee or priority fee. So I adopted all the median priority fee for blob sharing simulation. So what is the first core assumption? So let's assume that there are like 3 blob submissions. First blob was submitted at the block number 80 and it's 50 kilobyte. And second blob is at block number 100 and 6 kilobyte. And the last one is at block 150 and it was 100 kilobyte. Then I assume that between 80 to 100, this rollup generated the 6 kilobyte. Then it means at every block number, it generated 3 kilobyte. And the same for the gap between the 100 and 150. So with this core assumption, I pre-processed data and reconstructed the blobs. For example, as I assumed in the previous slide, so this rollup generated the 3 kilobyte between 80 to 100 and 2 kilobyte for every block in between 100 and 150. So I got like a little Legos of the blob data, and I collected all the small data bytes of rollups, and I reconstructed blobs like shared blobs. So with these Legos, I made like 128 kilobyte the shared blob for with using the real data. So there are some other processes. One is the handling access data. So the blob maximum size 128 kilobytes. So after 128, then I generated another blob, and also there's another restriction. There can be only 6 maximum blobs per block. So if there's a generated over like 6 blobs, then I submitted the blob in the next block. And also there are unlabeled blobs. Like I used made 28 blobs, 28 rollups, the labeled in Dune, but there are non-labeled blobs too. Then so only the 28 rollups data was the reconstructed. So I made unlabeled blobs should be submitted in the prioritized. Yeah. So this is the result. For me, this result was very interesting because not only small rollups, all the rollups got 82 to 99 percentage cost saving in USD dollars. So the one thing is that then why all the blobs got this dramatic cost saving? The thing was the blob-based fee. So the most black part is the cost where the rollups spend for blob-based fees. But as you see that for many rollups, the red part disappeared. Then why? It's because of the number of blobs. So as I told you, the blob-based fee mechanism moves exponentially as the excessive the blob counts. So if there are more than 3 blobs, then the blob-based fee increases exponentially. But there are 2 graphs. So left is just number of blobs. The number of blobs are not that different, only like a 20% difference. But in the right side, there are the blocks with over 3 blobs. So, but the total count of blobs are not that different, but blocks with over 3 blobs are decreased dramatically. That made the blob-based fee very smooth. So left is the real-world blob-based fee graph, and the right side is the blob-based fee movement after the blob sharing simulation. So this graph's y-axis is the log scale. So it means the blob-based fee difference was very, very big. So that made blob-based fee like 99% cheaper than previous, the real data. So I just checked, confirmed that blob sharing has a really big potential, but there are still open questions. So that was just simulation. So there I made three open questions. One is, so still there are not the detailed blob sharing schemes. So we need the smart contract design for blob sharing. And also there should be blob sharing data structure for security. For example, if we just share upload the random data chunks, then the rollups sequencers can't read data. So the last one is the blob sharing cost and reward distribution. In one theoretical study says that big rollups will have the bigger negotiation power based on game theory, but as we saw in the simulation result, the most beneficent from the blob sharing is the big rollups in the after the blob sharing. So here are key takeaways. So the blob sharing is very beneficial and has a really big potential, but there are still open questions. And the detailed data and description can be read in the research paper and the left QR code. And you can discuss with me on the right QR code, which is the Ethereum research website. Thank you.